you guys. Howdy do. I want to get my chat window open so I can see you guys. I just have to find it. All these things we have to find. I don't want that. I don't need that right now. So I hear you guys popping in. Here we go. There's my little chat. There's Jeannie from Switzerland. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Welcome. Howdy. This is great that you're from Switzerland. I mean, obviously, Odette was from Switzerland. Marilyn, good morning. Good morning. A bunch of you guys are going to be starting to pop in. So I may not say hi to all of you, but I am watching you pop in, giving everybody a chance to get here. And while you're coming in, I'm going to just go ahead and let you guys know if you are just finding this, because this is happening live, but it stays recorded and it stays online. You can find this recording, this lesson that I'm going to be doing. This is one of 4. And so if you want to find these lessons and it's no longer live, if you want to find them anytime, go to thequiltshow.com. You can see that down on the bottom right there in the on the page, thequiltshow.com, and then go to the classroom and look for Odette. Odette's Journey, Odette's Quilt Project with Ricky Timms, and you will see this project happening. So also we want you guys to know that there are kits for this. I'll wait just a second to show you those and give you that instruction. But I wanted to say that up front, that you can find this on thequiltshow.com. It also lives on the Facebook page for Quilt Show. It also lives on the YouTube page for the Quilt Show. So, but we do have a classroom at thequiltshow.com. If you're not a member, we would love for you to join our worldwide community. I also just want to say that I have a solo exhibition happening right now. This is August the 1st, but it will run through October the 18th of 2025. And that is at the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum in Golden, Colorado. And I would love for you to go and see those quilts. But I thought while we're popping in for today, I'm just going to go over to my computer screen. Let me get here and see if I can show you my computer screen. It is, you can allow... I think you can see. This is rickytimms.com, RICKYTIMS.com. And even though it says quilts for sale down here on this page, the big thing here, and they are, but these are the quilts that are on display. And in the event that you click on any of those thumbnails, it will open up to show you the full-size quilt. You can scroll down and you can see every one of these has a quilt story. So in the event that you just want to enjoy quilts and see my retrospective, these go all the way back. This is 1991 and we pop all the way up into 2025 on some of the last most recent quilts I've made. Let me just get all the way down. The last 3 quilts that you see here, I literally just finished for this exhibition. So again, if you click on one of those images, it will open up full size and you can see it, and it works out really great. So anyway, I hope that you will enjoy browsing my quilts online at rickytimms.com. And as you are popping in now, I'm going to go ahead and try to get started. We've got a really full class today. And what I mean by that, I have a lot to share with you. Today, it's going to be about cutting your fabrics. We do have kits, you guys. We have for thequiltshow.com. On the left, we've got the countryside version, and then on the right side, we've got the true blue. So either one of those, if those appeal to you, they are really affordable kits at thequiltshow.com. So I would urge you to consider going and getting those at thequiltshow.com. Yes, you can use your own fabrics if you want. You just need to kind of choose what fabrics you want to go where. Now, on this particular situation, I'm going to be guiding you through using traditional cutting methods. The Odette project is from Kaye England, and Kaye is, we're going to meet her in just a moment, and we're going to learn more about the project. You also, inside your book, this is the book. You can buy the book separately if you're not doing a kit, but inside you're going to find there is some history about Odette, her story. You can read about it in there, okay? But I want you to meet Kaye so that you understand how and why this has all come to be. So let me pop over and let you, and did that. I had a little chat with Kaye yesterday, and I know you're going to love getting to know her if you don't already know her. So let's meet Kaye. You guys, this is one of my dearest friends. I absolutely love her, and you're going to love her spirit as well. Please welcome Kaye England.
And I love you as well. So welcome, and I'm delighted to be with you.
So, Kaye, the reason we're chatting today is because we're doing the Odette project, and this was your brainchild. So, what can you tell us about Odette and how you came up with this project?
Well, actually, I'd like to say it was my brainchild, but it was really Gail Hillert's brainchild, who knew and had worked with Odette Quilt, who suggested when we were finishing a women's history project, why didn't we do something to celebrate Odette? And then of course that lit the fire, and Gail provided a lot of the research for doing the study about it, and the rest of it was a pure joy to me to just start creating elements and working with different angles and trying to come up with a plot. But the story really is
Well, let me just
because
yeah, let me just say who is Odette and who is Gail Hillard.
Well, Gail Hillert was for many years in head of director and vice president at Bernina of Education. And of course, she studied or spent a lot of time working on development of new machines in Switzerland and did know Odette and of course all of the family that is still owner of the company. And Odette is the granddaughter of the founder, the inventor of the first hem stitch machine. And she was running the company in Switzerland at a time that women couldn't even vote until 1971. So for a woman to be head of a company like that at that time frame was unique in itself, and we just thought it was a story worth telling.
Was it hereditary that got her in that position? Was she appointed by her father? Do you know?
I think it was a necessity because her brother was running the company, and then I think it fell on her. I believe, and Gail can probably add to that more than I can. But after he passed away, I believe that she was running the company, and there was no male heir at that time, as except H.P. Ulchi, who of course is the current owner, her son, and he was not, I don't think, ready to take the helm, and consequently it fell on her, which what we all find so exciting is that she jumped on it and that she was able to do this and work in some other highly accredited positions on boards and things like that, when women simply were mostly attractive and in the background in that
But
country.
this may be a question you don't know the answer to, but in my fantasy, she had such a vision that she really enhanced the Bernina brand and brought it into perhaps even a bigger prominence than it had been previously.
We all believe, and in my working with Gail on this, and then the other people from the company who've had input on this as well, firmly believe that many of the sewing machines in the industry, other brands, are have been improved by the vision Odette Ulchi saw and helped perfect. So some of that, I guess, is supposition, but I honestly believe that the whole world should know about her, regardless of brand you sew on, regardless of what you do. The entire sewing community should know about her dedication and devotion to the sewing machine and improving what we do and the way we do it.
All right. So our project is to celebrate Odette Ulchi. And so how then did you come up with the idea, the concept? Give me that vision because now that's what we're going to be working on.
Well, I just started what I always do, graph paper and some angles and some directions, and then the rabbit hole, then you go down that. And I mean, I was making blocks like crazy, sending them to Gail, and then we got busy on that. And then it just started happening. And then it was trying to make it all come to fruition by we wanted a pattern, then we wanted a book, then we wanted embroidery designs, and then we wanted all of these things. And it took some time to get it all there, and there you go.
Right.
And what's great is, and I'm sure you know this, but your viewer may not, that Bernina is named after a mountain. So that is the cover, the background of that cover is the Bernina Mountain.
That's fabulous. Now, we are not doing the cover quilt, right? So, but what we
No,
are, and in the book, there are a lot of options for setting the block itself,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
We
Hmm.
have our own setting specifically for this project with thequiltshow.com. The instructions for making the block in here. If somebody wanted to not do the quilt exactly the way I'm showing, they've got options in the book.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. And then the quilt for you guys is it's unique in that the setting is a little bit different. We did a few little fun things that we didn't do in the book, but anyone could just make 5 blocks and of course get very close to that. But it was the ability for you guys to have a little exclusive setting, and then their kit comes with a separate setting, of course, with the layout of how to cut scenic things on point and keep everything aligned, and then make sure that they can do any of the borders that live in the book. If even if they end up with a kit and go, gosh, I wish I had that border, it's
right,
doable.
right.
So
So I want to let everybody know we've met Kaye, we've talked about Odette, and we've talked about Gail, and we're not going to see Gail today, but Gail is going to be helping us when we get to the quilting stage. You guys are going to meet Gail, and she is delight. She's certainly been an influence in my life, so that's going to be a fun part of all of this. So is there anything else that you'd like to say about the Odette project, or just send your good wishes to everybody that's going to be working on it?
gosh, I'm excited to see what they're doing, and I can't wait to see what they come up with that may be very different. And I might want that pattern if they come up with a good one.
That's what people do. They're so creative in the quilting world. Kaye, thank you so much for meeting with us. I love you dearly. Thank you for this vision, and we're going to be celebrating Odette through this entire project. So thank you so much.
Ditto.
Kaye is a delight, absolute delight, and I'm so happy to be working on this project. She mentioned something about, digitized embroidery. That is actually digitized embroidery quilting designs that I've done. So if you're interested in that, I will just for now say OESD. You can find those at the OESD website. Legends and Legacies by Ricky Timms. And that's just to get you a head start. If that's the kind of thing you do in quilting in the hoop, that is available. Now, today again is fat. I've got a lot to cover with you, and I tried to truncate it by pre-recording some things for you. I need you to know what is in the kits, and I want to once again show you the two colorways. I am using the true blue because Kaye made the one that's behind me here in the countryside colors. So I want to share with you what is in the kit, what you will receive in the kit, and then that will help you understand what kind of yardage you might need if you're not doing the kit, which is, of course, certainly okay. So here we go. In the kit, you're going to have a handout that we don't need until we do the settings. So this is going to come in later. You, of course, have your Odette's Journey book, Kaye England and Gail Hillert, and it's going to tell the story of Odette. And there are many settings in this book, teaches you how to make the block, and then there are a variety of settings. We, in this class, are going to be doing this setting. This is what the kit is for. So this was created specifically for the quilt show, and if you want to make another setting, you've got a lot of options to do for that. Here is going to be your center kind of focal fabric and the border fabric. So you'll have a nice big print. Pay attention to this next one because it is this dark fabric in the block, And there is a darker fabric, I'm going to go all the way back here, for the binding, the sashing, and the border. So there are two dark blues. The one with the lighter print is for the blocks, and then the sashing and one of the inner borders is the extra dark fabric. Then you've got a medium fabric that you're going to use in the block. You're going to use a light fabric for the setting triangles, these guys, and you've got your light fabric that's going to also be in the block. So those are the fabrics that we're going to be using for the project. Just keep them in order and track, and you'll have everything that you need to make Odette's journey. And of course, if you're using the other colorway, you'll want to just compare the fabrics on the photo to the fabrics that are in your kit. Naturally, if you're using your own fabric, you will organize them just as we are doing with the kit fabric. So again, we have a big fat full day. Today is all about cutting. We're not going to sew one thing. We're going to cut out all the pieces. I'm going to be teaching you traditional cutting using just a regular, I have used one ruler, but then Kaye is going to show you how to use some of the specialty rulers. When you go shopping for the kit, if you would like to drop the specialty rulers into your cart, those are available. I find specialty rulers to work really well, but I'm showing traditional cutting. Kaye is going to show the ruler cutting, and it is also, these shapes are available through AccuQuilt. Kaye will discuss that. Someone just said the handout, that special handout that's in the kit, she bought the book elsewhere from Kaye, for example, and where does that come from? We will make sure that that handout is a PDF on the classroom page at thequiltshow.com so that you can click on it, download it, and print it yourself in the event that you don't have that. So we will make that happen. It won't happen immediately, but I would say within the next 24 hours we can make that happen. All right, now I'm going to get into doing traditional cutting. I'm going to show you how I cut these. And I'm using Kaye's book, all right? I'm using the book to make this happen. But I want to just give you a fair warning right now. There are some measurements in the front of this book that will seem like they're a discrepancy. For example, we know, quilters know, that if you have a 3-inch square and you need that to be with seam allowance, it's 3.5. And if you're going to do half square triangles, you add a 7/8, so it would be 3 7/8. And then Kaye says, make 3.5-inch half square triangles. Well, she's saying that on the page that involves the specialty rulers. So I want you guys to look at this page right now. I'm going to open up a page, and I want you to get your phones out. I'm going to also put this page as a PDF on the classroom page, but take a picture of what you see on the screen right now. And if you don't have quick access to your smartphone and to take a picture, then once this is over today, come back here and find this. We will put up a PDF of this in the classroom, but these are traditional cutting instructions. This is what I'm about to show you, and it is specifically for this quilt. For example, there are 5 blocks, and that means that the A unit, which is the center on point square, you just need 5. So you cut 5 4 3/4 inch squares from your focus theme fabric, and the total yield would be 5 squares. And going down this line, this is how that works. I also want to let you know that in the book, there's not a C1 and a C2, but I will explain why I've created a C1 and a C2 from those squares. So I'm talking just long enough to let you get a picture of this screen right now so that you will have all of this at your fingertips when you're ready to start cutting. Now what I want to do is I want to pop over and show you. This is a long segment. Today I'm going to be with you for at least a full hour. So please take care watching this segment on traditional cutting and come back and refer to it. It will live on YouTube. It will live on Facebook. It will also live in the quiltshow.com classroom. So here we go, cutting your yardages, cutting your fabrics. Because we've got borders, it's really smart to get those borders cut away from your yardage before you shorten your yardage and don't have the length you need. So I've taken this, I folded in half, so I've got 4 layers because there's a fold, and I put it on top of each other, making sure that everything is nicely aligned right here, all right? And this big border, this is the most outside border, it measures 3.5 inches, but I know I'm gonna put a little bit bigger binding on my quilt than a 1/4 inch binding. So for me, this is not for everybody, but for me, I'm gonna cut a 4-inch border. That's 4 inches, which would finish 3.5, but really it's still probably finishing closer to 3 because of the wider binding that I use. So I've cut on a line. That's just kind of typically me. You don't always have to use the lines on the ruler. I'm using the lines on the mat. So I'm cutting, I'm moving my ruler down so that I'm on that same line. And that is going to give me 2 of my 4 borders. So I'm going to take that one, set it aside. That's 2 layers. That's going to be, it's 4 layers total, but it's 2 layers of fabric. And now I'm going to use my ruler for this. Get the 4-inch mark, trim, move it down. And that piece is taken away, 2 more borders. And the rest of this is what I'm going to use to work with in the quilt. The same is going to hold true. The next border inside from the outside border is the white. So I've squared off or trimmed off the selvage edge. This one's a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to cut it 1 inch. So I'm going to use the line on the mat. You could just come across here and put the 1-inch line of the ruler on the edge there. That works just fine too. And trim off. Again, I folded this in half so I get 2 in my cut, and I will need to do this again. I almost forgot, this piece of fabric is only 1 yard, so I need to go ahead and cut another 2 strips, which will allow me to piece these onto the ones I've already cut to give me the length that I need. So make sure that you always add a little bit extra. I will, honestly, there's 2 strips, but if I cut them in half, I'll be able to use this length. I will piece it on the diagonal. We'll talk about all of that later. So essentially, I've cut 6 strips of the light. I'll do the same for the next one as well. And the rest of this I will be using for the blocks. For the next border, because the fabric again is even shorter, in this case I have cut 4 times because that ends up giving me the yardage that I need to make these strips longer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because I'm really going to have to join 2 of these together on the diagonal to get the length that I'm going to need for that border. I also cut these 1.5 inch wide so they will finish 1 inch. Now for this last piece, I've made these 1.25 inches to give me a 3/4 inch finished. Yes, I trimmed off the selvage first, and then again I cut 4 because this piece is so short. I really need 2 of these to piece together. I'll do that always on the diagonal so that it makes it a little bit nicer. You could piece it straight, but I like to piece it on the diagonal. Now that I have all of the border pieces set aside and reserved, I can now get busy and start cutting out the blocks. So I have trimmed off the edge. I've now trimmed 4 3/4 inches. That's the size of the squares that I need. I need 5 of these. So in this case, I'm going to put this right on a line. I like to line everything up. I'm going to do this cut on the end. Come over 4 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4 3/4. Over, I'm going to move it over. 1, 2, 3, 4 3/4. And if I played my cards right, I'll be lucky that I can now take this piece, open it up, and make it into 4 3/4 as well. This had a fold in it, so I've taken it to the iron, got it a little bit flatter, and I'm putting that right on a line. You can do it however you like. You can do 4 3/4 from the measuring. You can do 4 3/4 from the lines on the ruler. There are different schools of thought about that. I'm just telling you, I am not the quilt police. Do what you like. And let me do what I like. So now I have 5. These squares are unit A from this fabric. And rather than switching fabrics, I'm just going to jump now to unit E or template E. And I'm going to cut out what's needed, which is 20 2-inch squares. So I'm simply going to use my ruler, go ahead and cut these. I have these very carefully aligned. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Look how fast it goes. And now I've got all of my squares, and everything that I need from this particular fabric has been cut out. Now we'll move on to the next fabric. For the next template, this is going to be B. We need to cut this 3 7/8. And just for the ease of things, I'm going to go ahead and just cut a long strip that is 3 7/8. I do not need to yield this many pieces, but I find it's just easier if I do that. We have plenty of fabric. If you're going to make more blocks than this particular quilt calls for, then this will work out just fine. One of the things that I want you to be sure to do is to just manage your colors. You may just say whatever, make a note on your pattern what color this is. In this particular kit, this is not the darkest blue, but it is dark. It's not the dark that we use for the binding. So this is the dark, and it was 3 7/8. Now I need to cut this into the total number of squares that are listed on the pattern. 10 squares will yield 20 half square triangles. So again, I'm just going to move that over just so that I have it right where I want it. And 7/8. Again, you can use your ruler or you can use your mat, whatever works best for you. And each of these need to be cut on the diagonal. In this case, with the traditional method that I'm going to be showing to make the block, you need to do template D. This was B. It's going to be exactly the same for D. You'll cut out 5 units that will yield 20 half square triangles. For C1, I need 20 squares. I've trimmed off the edge to make it nice and clean. I'm going to cut 2 inches all the way across. And now I'm hoping I can get 10 across this way. That yields 20, right? If I'm lucky, I'm going to be able to make it. Ta-da-da-da-da! So that's 10 times 2 gives me 20. These are cut and ready to go. Now, I need C2s. I need to do the same thing. I need twice as many, but the next ones are going to be 2 3/8 out of our lightest fabric. 2 3/8. Make my life easier so I don't have to do fancy math. I'll scoot it right over to the line. Or you could use your ruler and do at the 2 3/8 mark Either of those is perfectly fine. And there you have your 40 half square triangles for C2. Now we get to those little pesky divided rectangles. These are going to be 2 1/8 by 4 1/4. I've already cut a 4 1/4 strip, and it's important to note it is still doubled, so in this case the wrong sides are together. That's going to be easy now for us to make the left slants and the right slants. But 2 1/8 by 4 1/4. So as I go down this, if I cut this one at 1/8, because you've seen me move my fabric, I could do the next one at 2 1/4. It's not really 2 1/4, but I've gone to the quarter. If I then jump over and go to the 3/8, I'm using my lines, 3/8, and then I jump over and go to the half. I'm adding 1/8 each time, so a half, I'm going to go 2, and then I'm going to go into the 5/8. All right. Then go over to the 3/4. Being really careful. Now over to the 7/8. And then back on the line for 2 1/8. And then once I'm back on that line, I'm going to jump over to the 1/8 again. And I'm going to go over to the quarter, and that's going to be the end of it for this one. So now let's count the units. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if I end up cutting these on the diagonal, like so, I yield, these two end up yielding F and FR, and I'm going to have to fix this. I didn't realize the selvage was there, but I can do that pretty easily. But that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and then up to 20. So every time, so there's 4 triangles in each unit, and we need a total of 40. So if I've got 10 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's going to give me all I need to do the project. And just so you guys won't be worried, I did cut another 2, and I'm going to divide that to take care of the one that went astray. Now, for this G template, you will have to use the template that's in the pattern. What I do is I use freezer paper. I will put that freezer paper over the pattern. I will put a dot, and a dot, remove the freezer paper, connect the dots, and then cut this template. Now, another thing is that this fabric is directional. These flowers are going up away from me, and I'm going to have some of these bias triangles going this way, some of them going the opposite way, which means my flowers will be going in different directions. If that bothers you, then you're going to end up cutting them all out one direction. You've got plenty of fabric to do that, but you will have an excess of unused triangles that you could consider waste. I'm not going to worry about it on this. Now, I've cut my strip 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches. I'm going to place the template on this fabric so that I have a 1/4 inch away from the bottom, and I'm going to press this. I want to make sure that as this edge comes down, it doesn't bump into the blunt end. I need to be able to trim 1/4 of an inch all the way down on this side. I'm going to press this freezer paper template onto the strip of fabric. Once I have that done, then I will cut out each side. And you may notice that this, because I've done 3.5 inches, we will have a little blunt at the top of the triangle. Now it's time for the next one. That's 2. These are going to be a little slower than the others you've done. Speedy cutting before and a little bit slower now. 1/4 of an inch. If you want to come away a little bit so that you know your 1/4 of an inch is exact, then I would suggest coming to here and pressing. Alternatively, you could use a roll of tape, put that on the back of your template to keep it from sliding and slipping, and then whenever you place this down, you don't have to run to the iron to do that. So you could use any piece of paper if that ends up being what you prefer. So on this one, I'm going to end up, I'm going to not try to be perfect. I want to be perfect with my cut. So I'm going to slice off that little bit. If I need to move this around, I will do that so that I'm really accurate. 1/4 inch. You're adding 1/4 inch to this template, and that's critical. I will continue to do this until I have created 40 of these triangles, and the blunt end is going to be on the point. This is not a perfect equilateral triangle. All right, so for what it's worth, it took me 3.5 inch strips to cut the fabrics that I needed. Now, all I have left to do is one more bias triangle, and that's going to be done out of the dark fabric. But I'll do it exactly the same way. Okay, so that's a lot. That's what I'm saying. Today is important because you're cutting out your fabrics. Once you get those fabrics cut out, it's going to go so much faster because you have everything done. I want to go back to this image. Again, if you didn't have your camera, get your camera out, take this picture. I want you to notice B, the template B in the upper left corner here. That is being cut as a triangle, and that is, 3 7/8 square divided diagonally. That C1 square, that's a 2-inch square, that will be placed on, and we will, for tradition, we will do that as a square sewn from corner to corner and then trim off. Kaye England calls those a connector. So in the next video, when she uses the word connector, she's talking about putting a square on a triangle, sewing at the diagonal. I will not demonstrate that today, but that's why C1 is a triangle, but in the pattern, it's a C, but I'm doing it as a C1 and a C2 just to make the two exclusively different. But they are squares. It's just that the C1 are 2-inch squares, and the C2, which will become triangles because they get cut diagonally, those are 2 3/8, doing traditional method like I'm showing you. All right, so again, you can rewatch this class, rewind, pause, stop, do things one at a time. That would be a really good thing. Now, I thought I had all the yardages on a picture for you. I've got them on a Sharpie note, so a sticky note with Sharpie pen. The main fabric for this kit has 1.5 yards of that printed fabric. So it's more than you need, but 1.5 yards, and that gives you your border length as well. There is 3/4 yard of that blue, which is the main blue for the block. There is 3/4 yard of the medium, which is kind of a medium blue print. There is 1 yard of the light blue, which is kind of also a medium, but it's a light blue. There's 1 yard of what I'm calling white. It has the little blue specks of flowers on it. And then there's 1 yard of solid dark blue, which is for the sashing and for the border. It's not used in the block at all. But those are the measurements that you'll be using. Sorry, if you're using fabric of your own, that's what you need to make the quilt, all right? The kit contains that, but if you're not using that, then you'll want to know what that is. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to, I'm going to show you this again. Remember, see, there's the B and the C1. That's really what I want you guys to be aware of. And then I have the C2, which are also the same triangle as C1, but we cut them slightly different because we're going to make them slightly different. Kaye is doing it slightly different because she's using those specialty rulers. Now I'm going to show you what Kaye's video. Kaye's video is taken from her YouTube. So if you want to follow Kaye specifically and see what she's doing, her videos are longer than what I'm showing. I'm showing you what's necessary, but you could go to the Kaye England YouTube page and see more of what she's doing if you wish to do that. So here is Kaye explaining the rulers, but also AccuQuilt. All right, so here we go.
Now, many of you know that I have worked with specialty rulers for quite a few years. This book is written with the instructions for the Odette block with specialty rulers. I have, of course, used my rulers for the demos, but as long as you have a tool that cuts the same element, it does not matter what brand it is. It's perfectly fine to do that. I will also be discussing some of the dies for AccuQuilt that will allow you to do that. And then, of course, we have included the traditional instructions as well. So let's take a look at the elements that actually make up the Odette block. What you can see on the overhead now is a picture of the 3 tools that I will use to cut the block and the elements that they deliver. So let's first take a look at this half square triangle right here. Now I can cut everything from 0 up to a 7.5 with this. And this tool cuts this element, and this element, obviously out of different size strips. I also can cut my square with this same tool. Then the half rectangle is going to cut this element, and in some cases there's more than one color. And then the bias triangle is going to cut this element. Now, for those of you who love AccuQuilt, this die right here, which is die 13, is the same thing as the bias triangle. Die 3 is the same thing as the half square triangle. Die 3 and die 5 both cut half square triangles. And then I go, well, how did I get that half rectangle? I just simply lay in die 14, which cuts a pair of these little fellows. Now, the one thing you have to be careful about when you're cutting these, and all of the instructions with AccuQuilt and then in the rulers as well, will tell you that you need mirror images of this guy. So I cut my strips right sides together or wrong sides together. So you're going to get a set this way, but both of these will be right side up. So I'm going to need reverse layers. In other words, alternate your layers. And I'll tell you how you figure that out, folks. Cut a bunch and you'll have all lefts and no rights, and you'll go, ah! Should have done a reverser. Now, this little fellow right here is die 16. I'm going to cut this element right here today with a half square ruler, but if you are an AccuQuilt cutter, that cuts this same element, which is a little trick. It's exactly like this fellow. I'm just going to do a little trim on it. So those are the elements that we'll be working with today. So the very first cut I'm going to make is I'm going to cut myself these squares. I have pre-cut my strip. Now, when I use this ruler, which is a half square triangle ruler to cut squares, I just read the words that's on the ruler, and then I just turn the ruler over where I have a 90 degree in the upper right hand corner. I'm now going to just trim off that selvage, and then I slide my ruler to the mark that is the size that I cut my strip. So if you'd cut a 3-inch strip, you'd go to the 3. If you cut a 2-inch strip, you'd go to the 2, and on it goes. And there is my squares. So I have cut my squares. Now, to cut my half square triangle, I'm a right-hander. My excess fabric is to my right. I lay my ruler down to where it meets its strip height. I'm going to hold that ruler. I'm going to do cut 1. My second cut, I just flip over, and there I am. So now I have all my little half square triangles cut in a size. Now, if I wanted the larger half square triangles, I would just do the same thing. I would just lay my ruler down and I would be ready to cut. So now I've cut my triangles, my half squares, to cut my half rectangles. Now remember, I told you I want lefts and rights. So if I wanted them out of this color, I would just lay my ruler down, make my cut. Now there's a little angle there on the corner that you want to cut off, that little notch. And what I now have is a left and a right. If you had cut them with one side, like all right sides up, you would only have one. If you were to use your AccuQuilt die, both of these look like this guy. So be sure when you cut with AccuQuilt that you have your fabric same sides facing, because that will give you some lefts and some rights. And that's what you want for this. Now I want to cut a bias triangle, and the bias triangle is pretty cut and dried. You just lay down what size your strip is. So if I wanted one with this little guy right here, I would just lay my ruler down on there, and this height of that strip is what's going to yield me my bias triangle. And I use lots and lots and lots of bias triangles in this. So if cutting that guy, I would just simply lay down like this. And if I cut double, now I'm not worrying about precision so much because I've already pre-cut all my elements. So there is this element. Now, this will give me a chance to show you something. Be careful about this. This is AccuQuilt's die, which is this exact same thing right here. But you'll notice with the AccuQuilt die, let me slide this, the two notches in the corner are cut off, which is fabulous, but you have to bear in mind that that straight notch right there is your top or bottom. If it's real easy to make this guy the top and bottom because this looks like it's an equilateral triangle, it is not. So it is very important if you're using this die, when you start to sew these, that you understand the flat top is the centered, either top or bottom, of your element. Now I want you to notice that this unit right here, which is this guy, is really the same thing as this one with its corner cut off. So all I do is I have given you the sizes that you would cut off. I still cut a half square triangle for this when I'm using ruler method, and I would slide in and take that base of that previously used connector off, and I would get this. Had I used the AccuQuilt die, it's a separate cut altogether. When I'm using rulers, everything gets cut like this half square triangle, and then I cut the corners off. So we're going to be making this element, four of these, and one of these, and we're ready to go.
All right, you guys, I want to show you some things in the book just to clarify the difference between traditional and using the rulers. As a matter of fact, I really love that bias triangle ruler because the template, that's what I'm doing, is a little more cumbersome than having that bias triangle ruler. But on page, I don't know what page is, page 4. On page 4, you're going to see the cutting instructions. I want you to see that with the ruler, she tells you to cut like 3.5-inch half square triangles. That means cutting the strip 3.5 inches and using the ruler. And then, as you'll see on the upper right corner, figure 1, that's how she shows you how to use the ruler to trim off that triangle to get that little bit that you need. On page, let me go, I think it's page 18, these are the instructions for traditional cutting and the connectors that she's doing, where we do it like that right there. Sorry, I'm going backwards. But more importantly, I would urge you to stick with my video because you're seeing me do it. And then when we come back on Monday will be our next meeting, which is August the 4th. I will be with you same time, same station, and that will be sewing the block. The blocks are going to go together so fast. I believe I made this block after I did all the cutting. I made this block in maybe 30 minutes or less. So they're going to go together really quick. And you've only got 5 blocks in the entire quilt. And you can see once you've done your cutting, once you've got your blocks made, we're just talking sashing, setting triangles, and borders. This quilt is going to go fast. The last session we have together, I'm going to be showing you some amazing quilting opportunities. You can either do it in the hoop with an embroidery module, or I'm going to show you how I mark my quilt and do free motion quilting to give you the beautiful designs that I created for this Odette project. So I'm just looking to see if there might be any questions popping in right now that I could answer before I say my goodbyes. Today, it's about cutting. You'll either use your specialty rulers, you'll use the traditional method, which is what I'm doing and teaching, or if you've got AccuQuilt and you have the dies that Kaye mentioned, you'll be able to do that. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to doing this project with you. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful tribute to honor Odette. It looks like from this sample, all 4 are the light fabric. I'm going to show you my sample. Here is the kit. Here is my sample. I did it exactly like this. It is not a variation. So Laurie, I'm not sure what you're seeing, but it is exactly the same as the kit. For what it's worth, I practiced. All right, I used some of my hand-dyed fabrics and practiced. But this is the thing I really, really want you to pay attention to. I want you to feel confident about your cutting. I don't want you to cut 3/4 of the fabric in your kit and go, oh no, I did the wrong size. If you have any questions, you need to either cut off just a little bit or get some extra fabric and just sew it like how to sew a block together, to make sure that you feel good about the cutting on your project. So that's really, really important, that you just feel good about it so that you don't end up chopping a bunch of squares into triangles and then they're suddenly, a 1/2 inch off or something like that. That's why I've taken time to give you very in-depth videos of watching me do what I did, because most of you, I have a feeling, will be doing something in the lines of traditional. But I will tell you, I wanted to say that template. The template that you need is on the back of the book, almost the back of the book. It's the next to the last page, page 19. You are going to be using the inside version for the 12-inch block. So as I said, I put a dot, and a dot, and I just traced those, just the dot, and then I connected the dots, and then my template was the finished size. So I ended up using my ruler to add 1/4 inch. And because I had a 3.5 inch strip, when I put that template on, every time I cut to the edge, I had a blunted top, the same way that Kaye had a blunted top when she used her rulers. So that was a really helpful thing for me. And when I get into sewing this for you, I'll show you why that's a really nice thing. It also saves just a smidge fabric because we're not cutting more than 3.5 inches. So follow the instructions, rewatch the videos, stop, pause, rewind, do what you need to do. Other than that, I think it will be great. Their cutting instruction guide and illustration only shows 3 C triangles to the B piece. I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm looking at my cutting instructions. There's going to be a C1 that's a square that we're going to do whenever we make it. It's a 2-inch square. I've got, oh, I see, yeah, one, oh, this is incorrectly colored, you guys. I have to fix that. This right here is meant to be that lighter blue. That is a mistake on my part. So I have to go in and fix that for you. So I can do that. That's an easy fix. Thank you for that catch. But it will be 4, 1 on each corner, like this. 1 on each corner. Or if I showed you the real block, like this will be even better. Okay? I need an editor. Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right, you guys, I'm going to say goodbye. This was a long hour. I don't think our next meetings will be quite as long, but this is a lot to introduce the block, introduce Odette, introduce Kaye, and get it all cut out for you. I'm hoping that you'll have fun making this with me. Bring your friends along. I think it's a wonderful project, especially to honor Odette and to get to know a lady who was so influential in our industry. All right, you guys, thank you so much for a great day. It's been fun, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.